Fantastic. Okay, so I just want to start by saying thank you so much for taking the time out to sit down and chat with me. I suppose the
Thank
first
you.
question is who are you and what's your involvement with Confessions?
Yeah. So my name is Tanya Truman. I'm a performer and a producer from North London.
Hmm.
And my role within Confessions of a Rabbi's Daughter, I'm performing it and sort of producing it as well. So we've put the show on. I did it as part of my Mount View MA course
Okay.
last summer. We did a sort of one night performance, but it was all kind of online because of COVID. So now we've been invited to bring it to the other palace for two shows with an audience, which will be great.
Which is amazing. So I suppose let's start at the very beginning. How did you get into
Yeah.
musical theatre? How did that journey start for you?
Ooh. So my kind of journey into musical theatre, I've always sort of
Hmm.
envisioned myself having a career in musical theatre. I was always singing, acting from a young age, dance, not so much, but we'll just kind of skip over that. I went and trained. So I went to LSMT, so
Hmm.
London School of Musical Theatre, when I was 18. So I was quite young and I graduated quite a few years ago now and sort of, yeah, came out in the industry and I've kind of dabbled between bits of like musical theatre, some kind of straight acting, a bit of film here and there, and then started now also producing work. So kind of just to broaden my opportunities even more, because obviously it's a very hard career, and
Yeah.
you can't just rely on auditions. So I've kind of now started making my own work as well.
So how did the idea of Confessions of a Rabbi's Daughter start? How was that born?
Yeah. So a very good friend of mine called Emily Rose Simons. She's a fantastic musical theatre songwriter, composer, and writer. I met her whilst working at the Everyman. It's like one of the side jobs that quite a lot of actors kind of do. They work front of house. So I met her there in 2018, and she was telling me all about this show that she had written. That she was actually performing herself, even though
Hmm.
she's not. She won't mind me saying she's not a sort of she is a performer, but she doesn't class herself as
Yeah.
like a professional performer. So she always kind of had envisioned someone else kind of performing the show. But we met a few years ago. She sort of told me about it, and I was really interested because I'm a Jewish performer, and obviously the show is about a Jewish woman, and Emily's Jewish as well. And yeah, we decided that it would be great for me to kind of perform it. And then yeah, a few years later, here we are. So
Um,
yeah,
so obviously it's a new piece of work by Emily. How have you
yeah.
found sort of the rehearsal process of a completely new project?
Yeah, so it's new in the sense that, I mean, Emily wrote it a few years ago, but
Hmm.
it's been very much tweaked and revamped. So it is still very much new. So last year, when we did it for Mount View Catalyst Festival, it had all been sort of very much rewritten, lots of new
Hmm.
songs. It was really exciting, kind of, coming into rehearsals, just having like a brand new song to learn and, minimal time. I love that process of sort of like new writing.
Hmm.
And I find it really exciting working with writers and kind of developing their vision and their work. And now, yeah, so this year, not so much has changed since last year, but we are sort of kind of cutting a bit of dialogue and we're kind of making it a bit more stripped back to fit like a concert style production at the other palace.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's really exciting and very much looking forward to getting into rehearsals, which starts next week actually.
Hmm.
So yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, so what is the story? What goes on in Confessions of a Rabbi's Daughter? What is the plot?
Yeah. But I don't want to give too much away,
Hmm.
but it's basically about a woman called Rachel. So she's an Orthodox Jewish woman, and her father is a rabbi of a well known kind of London synagogue.
Hmm.
And her mother sadly has passed away. She's always kind of thought she was going to sort of marry a Jewish man and sort of become that, typical
Hmm.
Jewish woman, have babies, all of that, which is quite traditional in the Orthodox sense. But she actually, throughout the story, realizes that she kind of wants to go down a different direction. And an actual romance starts to blossom between her and her female friend. So it's sort of like a queer story
Hmm.
and a queer Jewish story, which is something that's, yeah, quite rare to sort of have been
Yes,
explored
yeah.
in Jewish writing. So yeah.
Fantastic. So obviously, you said it's coming from a Jewish team, including yourself.
Yes.
Um, how have you found sort of the depictions of the culture within the show?
Yeah, it's very much sort of like present throughout in the sense like in the music and sort of mentioned, and because the woman, the Rachel, the character, she kind of is a practicing Jewish woman. She goes to synagogue, things like that, Friday night. Me as a Jewish woman, I'm a little bit more sort of cultural, less religious, but I find, it's great because I can kind of bring myself and my own experiences to the role. And yeah, it is very much woven kind of throughout the piece, but not to the extent where, not to the extent where somebody else couldn't sort of enjoy it who's not Jewish. It's definitely catered to sort of all kinds of people, because the story isn't actually about her Jewishness. It's about her kind of figuring out who she wants to be in the world, and like her kind of friendships and her relationships. So it's actually more about that than about actually being Jewish.
Yeah.
Although that is obviously a highlight,
So it's like a story of a Jewish person rather than a Jewish story as such. Oh, fantastic. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
What, for people who haven't, taken a show to somewhere like the Other Palace before, what has been like the journey from this Mount View show, relatively small, to now moving to this venue?
It's a great venue. Yeah. I think just sort of like it's always scary, taking something from a very small, very comfortable audience, being at Mount View, it's all like student led. It's like, it's part of the course. So then now taking it to like a professional venue, there's definitely like a risk of like, oh, are people going to come? Like, who's going to be in the audience and all of that. But the journey, yeah, it's basically just been finding the right home for it. And like the Other Palace, obviously being such a great home for new musicals. It's definitely, a great place for the show. And it's kind of a great space for like developing new work as well. So it's not like the finished product. Like this isn't the finished show as such, but it's sort of like the next step in its development process. Yeah, it's been great. And the venue are wonderful. So I'm really excited to get it there.
So as a performer, how do you feel about that sort of constant development? How does that alter how you approach the show, your character? How does that affect you?
Yeah, I think it just keeps things always fresh. You don't get stale. Whereas I think when you're working on like an old show or like something that's really set in stone, it can get quite stale. Like you're just kind of following the path that the previous character did. Whereas with new writing, it's very much like you're creating the role, you're inventing the role. So it's always about just sort of keeping reactive and, not getting too attached to things either, because at any moment a song could be cut or some dialogue could be cut, so you've just got to kind of keep adaptable all the time. And it's really fun, working in the room with the writer so closely, because that's something you don't get to do often. So with new writing, it's really great having like Emily so present in the room, and our amazing director, Grace Taylor, who's actually been associate director on Six, the musical, which is obviously an amazing show. She's our director. So that's also been really fun working with her and like having that sense of play in the room. Yeah.
And I suppose also it's much more sort of you can bring your own stuff into it, so you're using your own creativity as well. And that's why don't you try it like this? Or I've had an idea. I suppose that keeps it exciting.
It's all very collaborative. Yeah, it's so super collaborative in the room. If I have an idea or want to kind of try out a new riff or something, it's very much an open room for everyone to contribute. So
fantastic. So where can people find out about the show? Buy tickets? Where's all that information? Where can that information
be? So they can follow us on social media. So it's on Instagram, it's at ConfessionsLDN on Instagram, and on Twitter it's at ConfessionsLD LNDN London, because LDN was not available on Twitter, sadly. Tickets are on the Other Palace Studio website. They're from £12.50. And there's just the two shows, 21st and 22nd of September at 8 p.m. So we'd love everyone to come and see it if they can.
Yeah, fantastic. And who would you recommend the show to? Who do you think the show is for?
It's always a tough one. I'd really say it's very much catered to lots of people, but I'd definitely say if you love a new musical, come and see it because the songs are excellent. They're so good. Some of the songs are so catchy, really heartfelt as well. So, if you love seeing new shows, new musicals, song cycles, if you're a fan of Jason Robert Brown, anything like that, then you would love this because it's very much that like contemporary musical theatre score with minimal dialogue, but there's dialogue to sort of help to bring the story across, but it's very song focused. So if you love a new musical, come and check it out.
Well, just obviously, and generally speaking as well, with the 2 years we had where the industry was, supporting new shows, even supporting obviously the classics and the established shows is fantastic. Of course,
so important.
But also these new shows, local shows, is equally, if not a little bit more right now, important. Fantastic. So my final question.
We need to support.
Yeah. Sorry.
Sorry, I was just saying, these smaller shows really need the support because we don't have that loyal fan base. So it's a risk on a new show. So we really need the support of people to come and like take that chance and hopefully they'll enjoy it.
Yeah, and especially from a personal perspective, obviously you don't want to be stood in front of an empty audience.
No.
So
that's a big fear. So, yeah.
So my final question, where can people stay up to date with you? And, where can people find out what you're up to next or further updates on the show?
Yeah. So you can follow me on my Instagram is at Tanny Truman. I've got Twitter at Tan Truman. And I've got a link tree as well, which is at Tanya Truman. So you can find my links, my website, tanyatruman.co.uk, lots of like performing bits on there. And just social media. I'm quite active and sort of like posting up too. So would love to meet some of you and for you to come and see the show. That'd be great.
That's amazing. I will put the links in the comments so people can scroll down and click away. But that's everything I've got. So as I said at the beginning, thank you so much for taking the time out to sit down and chat with me. And I wish you the best of luck. And I encourage everyone to, check out a new show. And like we've said, supporting new musicals is important now more than ever. So it's been lovely chatting to you. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Lovely chatting to you as well.